Okay, a couple of things injury-wise. Tomey's been with us all this week, practiced, so he's cleared to go. Guy that we didn't have with us last week, I think it'd be really good to bring him back in the lineup. Unfortunately, Des Schuster will have surgery next week, so we lost him for the year. But the good news on top of that, Aiden Kanopik has been cleared, and he's back with us. And because we got 4 games remaining, he can play in all 4 of those games and help us. Has been looking good out there, really, since the bye week. We knew if we could hold him out of the Washington game and get him through that, we'd have these 4 games on the back end, so that's what we're doing there. Other than that, pretty much injury-wise, we should be good. I thought our guys, the last 2 days have kind of been what we think Saturday's going to be. There's been some strong winds in there, some wind gusts, some of the typical stuff you see in Memorial Stadium here in November. Super excited for Saturday, too, with Dad's Day to get that opportunity, that moment with those guys. Something I wasn't aware of until I came here and never seen it anywhere else. So another good example of how Illinois kind of differentiates itself. So super excited for our dads that have that experience. And if it's not dad, it's someone in their life that fits that role. So it's always kind of a fun weekend for us in that regard. So with that, open up for questions.
I get a 2-parter,
Yeah.
unrelated, so you'll love this.
Yeah.
High school playoffs are going on right now. You came in at a time when there was not probably great relations between the school and the high school coaches. Tell me what you've done to do that, fix that thing, because obviously.
Well, just a lot of, one of the things I thought of walking into this job that I had no idea, I already knew a lot of Illinois high school coaches, right? Like just crazy, and that's probably doubled, if not tripled since then, right? Like I've literally called and reached out to a couple high school coaches this week that I've become very close with, right, during this process, either through recruiting the guys we got, maybe even guys we didn't get, right?
Sure.
But just the awareness factor, I think, again, Pat Ryan just does an unbelievable job. I think literally Pat reaches out to every person in the playoffs. He talks to every high school coach. It's kind of been his shtick since he got here. And I can't tell you how many times when I'll reach out to a high school coach and they'll say, I talked to Pat Ryan last week, or I talked.
Sure.
So that's a big part. And I think just to bring awareness, I think it's a great game we're involved in. Even when Fitz was back at Notre Dame and now Coach Brom, like I think us and Northwestern consciously have really done the same type of messaging, which
Sure.
I think just builds and promotes football in our state.
Pat, part 2 is last year you guys had a lost to Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
You came back and really rolled it from that point forward. What makes you confident you can do that again this year?
Well, I think each year is uniquely different, but I mean, we actually, talk about the back half of our season, going back to last January to where we are, knowing that we had the bye week with 2, bye week with 3. But I think everything that we kind of have going on right now, we've kind of told our guys, listen, we all know there's 4 guaranteed games in front of us, but there's nothing more important than Rutgers. Our focus from, Sunday afternoon, we brought them back in the building to put Washington behind us, but to learn from it and then move into Monday, kind of challenge them to have, a daily approach all this week. I really liked the way they handled Tuesday. I thought Wednesday was good. Today was a really, really good practice out there in the elements, and hopefully that's going to pay off for us on Saturday. We still got a really good prep day tomorrow. Got our 4th straight sellout. I mean, that means a lot. Sat down with Josh yesterday, and he and I get together a couple times a month, and I kind of lose perspective on how big a deal that is, right, financially, and within the athletic department to have those sellouts is a pretty unique thing.
In what ways did you challenge your defense this week, and how did you see them respond to it?
Yeah, I think to know our opponent, so we all know we're playing Rutgers on Saturday, right? But they're playing the person they're playing against, right? Like, I think one of the big things that I really was in tune to when I made that jump to the NFL was, okay, it's the Patriots, when we were getting ready to play, a certain team, but it's about how you as a right guard match up against their D tackle, right? And that's the thing. We got 8 games on these guys. Rutgers has had a lot of good players come into the program, and now they get to see them in matchup issues. Obviously, we concentrate on a lot of the Big Ten games, but even going back to that first game, Ohio and the challenges that brought to them. But last week at Purdue, it's almost the same mirrored trip for them, right? They're coming in same time frame in the same region of the country, and so that game last week obviously very good as well.
Well, guys, a good modicum of success in the month of November. How do you get your guys ready to get through this, what I assume is a physical grind at this point in the season?
Yeah, well, just look at Rutgers, right? A really good physical football team. Greg's a defensive coach. I think he and I probably have similar kind of mindsets. How they, we recruit against them quite a bit, not just in Jersey, but in Florida, even in the Midwest here. So I think that's the challenge, and it presents itself as I understand the process of looking at the month of November, but we really just concentrate on Rutgers.
What guys in the back end of that defense do you think kind of took
Your guys?
your guys kind of took ownership of that this week and showed some leadership?
Well, I without a doubt, Matt Bailey and Miles Scott, they're our leaders. They're very vocal. I even heard, Matt Bailey out there to literally that last segment right there, the way we kind of end practice on Thursday with end of half, end of game scenarios, and to hear Matt say those things. But I would tell you, a lot of people, talk about, especially when you're dealing with a passing game, everybody thinks it's about the coverage, but a lot of times it's about the rush, right? And we got to do a better job of marrying those two things together, and that's what I really stressed. When I met with the defensive staff about third down, especially, is understanding what routes we're going to see, how we defend it, not just with our coverage but also our rush.
I wanted to ask you about the pass rush. What have you seen from that defense, your defensive front this year, and how do you get a little bit more out of that?
Well, I think a lot of things depend on who you're playing, right? And then, for instance, certain down and distances, you can bring pressures, but sometimes they're not going to let pressures beat them. They're going to get the ball out. Certain areas of the field, I think you got to have an understanding of what they're trying to do and then how we're going to combat it. But obviously, we got some guys up front that I think can do good in one-on-ones, and then also there's some game rushes. We had a guy fall down last week, right, on a stunt that really was a critical part. Just a simple thing. We had a spy on a quarterback that ran into a route. In my opinion, we needed to play that guy at a different level. And so there's just a lot of things that can clean up, and unfortunately, the things that failed us in the past, we got to learn from them moving forward.
Yeah, outside the two hands of defense penalties, what's Angelo McCollum maybe done to put himself in a place where he's feeling a pretty important?
Well, Angelo, his care factor is really really high. He plays a good pad level. He's a pretty stout dude in there. It's hard to move him. I think he also has the ability. He did some running back stuff in high school. He can run really, really well. So I think hopefully if he continues to come along, obviously, like you said, the two post snap hands to the face, we just can't have those. Can't be tolerated. But he's a player in his third year, so he's got some experience here. But he's a guy that I think down the home stretch here, it's going to be critical to see how he plays.
Yeah, after Johnny and now Angelo, are you looking for defensive tackles that played running back at some point?
Angelo, I think it was a default. They kind of used him in special situations, but yeah, he's a very gifted player and somebody excited to see these games.
I wanted to ask you philosophically, end of half offensively for you. We've seen Purdue, you guys march down to get a field goal, maybe not as much against Washington. What are you looking for to decide when to push for points?
Well, we had it called against Washington, but the first play we threw the fade route out there, which stopped the clock, and I didn't really want to give them the ball back or a chance at that. So wanted to be aggressive. We'll always try to be aggressive, just the way Luke handles those end of halves. It's a big point of emphasis. So each game is uniquely different, but I would say overall, in general, we try to make those end of half. And there was a double. We won the toss, so we were trying to get a double dip going in on Saturday, and obviously did not. But we have in the past, and hopefully can in the future.
I know there's not a magic pill you can take on third down defensively, but is there a formula where you can improve that third down defensive efficiency, get some stops, or?
Absolutely, yeah. We got to have a plan that we feel can work, and then we got to execute it, right? I think there's nothing magical, right? I do think that each team presents a little bit different responses. These guys were very wired in. I think, looking at it and what I presented to the staff, I had them do their presentation, then I did my presentation, and kind of married the thoughts together on how I see it's going to play out. And then obviously we got to, in the schemes that we call, we have to execute and make sure they mirror, right? Like, you can have the right answers, but if it doesn't happen, then obviously the answer wasn't the right one, right? So I think that's big self-awareness, being critical, and also understanding why failure happened.
Thanks, Coach.